Hello, dear book lovers. Welcome to the Kitab Kurdu channel. Today, we will be discussing one of the cornerstones of world literature, Geoffrey Chaucer's masterpiece, The Canterbury Tales. Written in medieval England, this work is not just a collection of stories. It is also a mirror of society and a gateway to the depths of the human soul. In this video, I will take you back to 14th century England, where we will witness both Chaucer's life and the colorful and unforgettable journey of the pilgrims. Historical context. Medieval England. The 14th century was a period of great transformation in Europe. The Black Death claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, while the feudal order was shaken to its core. In England, the shadow of Norman French was slowly lifting, and English was beginning to establish itself as a literary language. Chaucer was at the center of this linguistic revolution. His works were one of the most critical steps in the acceptance of English as a literary language. The Canterbury Tales was born in this very environment. People embarked on pilgrimages, both to demonstrate their devotion to God and to escape the chaos of social life for a while. Chaucer transformed this pilgrimage into a perfect literary framework. The stories of a group of travelers heading to the tomb of St. Thomas Becket in Canterbury are, in fact, a panorama of medieval society. Who was Geoffrey Chaucer? Geoffrey Chaucer was born in London around 1343. Although he was born into an ordinary family, he held positions at court, worked as a diplomat, and traveled throughout Europe. His encounter with the works of Dante, Petrarch, and Boccaccio in Italy broadened his literary horizons. Chaucer was not only a poet, but also an observer, a historian, and a keen analyst of the human spirit. His greatest work, The Canterbury Tales, showcases his mastery of language and his sharp insight into society. This is the main reason why he is referred to as the father of English literature, before Shakespeare. The structure of the work. The Canterbury Tales is actually a frame story. A total of about 30 pilgrims set out from Southwark, near London, to Canterbury to pass the time on the road. Each of them begins to tell stories. Although Chaucer had planned to write 4 stories from each pilgrim, he died before completing the work. Today, we have 24 stories. Each story reflects the personality and social class of its narrator. A knight tells tales of noble love, while a miller presents a crude and humorous anecdote. A priest offers religious advice, while a merchant chooses a self-serving and pragmatic tale. Thus, the work brings together all the colors of medieval society, characters, passengers on the journey. Among the pilgrims, there are many different types of people, from knights to priests, millers to merchants, lawyers to women. These characters are not just individuals, they are also representatives of social classes. The knight, noble, honest, and heroic. His story is an epic tale of love and chivalry. The miller, he speaks crudely and arrogantly. His story is a bawdy comedy. Wife of Bath, one of the most interesting female characters in literary history. She is a brave and intelligent narrator who questions the role of women in marriage. Parson. He stands out for his piety and sincerity. Merchant. A typical middle-class individual living in the shadow of money. Each character has both an individual identity and a social reflection. Chaucer created a microcosm of England with this diversity. One of the most important features of the Canterbury Tales is that it was written in Middle English. Chaucer wrote literature in the vernacular of his time. This meant elevating the English spoken by the people rather than the French spoken by the aristocracy. Moreover, Chaucer's ironic and humorous style enhanced the realism of the characters. Each narrator uses a language appropriate to their social background. In this way, the work forms a whole that is both serious and humorous. A moment ago, we were introduced to Chaucer's frame story and the characters who set out on the journey. Now, let's take a closer look at the stories told by these pilgrims on the road to Canterbury. Because each story is not just entertainment, it is also a mirror that reveals the narrator's soul, class, and worldview. 1. The Knight's Tale. This is the opening story of the collection, and it is no coincidence. The knight is seen as the most respected and noble member of the group, so he is given the first word. The story takes place in ancient Greece. 2 knights, Palamon and Arcite, fall in love with the same woman, the beautiful Emilia. Fate brings them face to face time and again. This tale explores the tension between love, fate, and God's will. The Knight's Tale reflects high ideals and chivalric culture, but Chaucer also shows the tragedy underlying these ideals. Both knights suffer greatly for Amelia's sake, and in the end, fate fulfills God's will, not theirs. 2. The Miller's Tale. After the knight's noble love story, the rough miller takes the floor, and the tone of the narrative changes completely. This story is an example of a fabliau, a bawdy and humorous short story. In the story, a young student named Nicholas sets his sights on Allison, the young wife of the old carpenter John. The two deceive John and have an affair. They tell John that a great flood is coming and tie him to a tub hanging from the ceiling. In the end, the story culminates in a conclusion filled with peasant humor, deception, and shame. Chaucer establishes a social balance here. After the idealistic story of the upper classes, we hear the crude humor of the lower classes. Thus, each class is represented by its own voice. 3. The Wife of Bath's Tale. The Wife of Bath is perhaps one of the most controversial characters in literary history. She has been married 5 times, has struggled with men throughout her life, and is a woman with high self-confidence. Her prologue, or introductory section, is a manifesto in itself. She makes sharp comments about the role of women in marriage, the hypocrisy of the male-dominated order, and women's desire for freedom. In the story she tells, a knight attacks a woman and asks the queen for a chance to avoid punishment. The queen gives him a task: find out what women want most. After a long search, the knight learns that what women want most is sovereignty over their own lives, that is, control. This answer saves his life. This story contains a feminist perspective, even in the Middle Ages. Chaucer portrays his female character so powerfully that she still inspires modern debates today. 4. The Pardoner's Tale. The pardoner, or indulgence seller, is a clergyman who sells indulgences on behalf of the church. However, his character is full of deceit. In his story, 3 young men set out in search of death. On the way, they find a great treasure. Out of greed, they kill each other. This story is a lesson in morality. Radix malorum est cupiditas. The root of all evil is the love of money. But Chaucer's irony works here too. The pardoner, who tells the story, is himself a swindler who cheats people for money. The contradiction between the lesson he teaches and his own behavior reveals the profound satirical power of the work. 5. The Nun's Priest's Tale. This story is a fable. It tells the story of a rooster, Chanticleer, and a fox. The rooster is deceived by the fox because of his pride, but then escapes with his wits. This fable is both entertaining and allegorical. It shows what can happen to people because of their pride and lack of attention. It is also a medieval version of classic animal fables. The real magic of the Canterbury Tales lies in this diversity. In one story, you find the nobility of love. In another, peasant humor. In another, religious lessons. And in another, animal fables. This diversity proves that Chaucer was able to grasp the human soul in all its aspects. Each story reveals not only the narrator's social identity, but also the universal weaknesses of humanity: love, jealousy, greed, pride, hope, and irony. So far, we have heard about who the Canterbury travelers were and the stories they told. But how did Chaucer tell these stories? Understanding his style, humor, and the literary legacy of his work sheds light on why the Canterbury Tales is considered a world classic. Language and Middle English. The Canterbury Tales was written during the Middle English period. This language is quite different from modern English, but much more understandable than Old English. Chaucer's language was inspired by the dialects spoken by the people of England. Until then, the language of literature had been French or Latin, but Chaucer made a great revolution by choosing English. For example, Chaucer's famous opening lines are as follows in Middle English: "One that April with his sure suit the Dracht of March hath pursed to the root." Style, realism, and diversity. One of the most striking aspects of Chaucer's style is its diversity. Each narrator uses a language appropriate to their social class and character. The knight speaks in a lofty and epic style. The miller speaks in a coarse and streetwise manner. The wife of Bath is witty, but also makes serious feminist points. The pardoner uses religious but hypocritical language. This diversity elevates Chaucer beyond his time. Chaucer's humor. In Chaucer's work, humor is used not only to entertain, but also to criticize society. The Miller's Tale reflects the exuberance of peasant humor. The wife of Bath questions the male-dominated order with her sarcastic comments on marriage. The Pardoner exposes religious fraud. Literary significance. The Canterbury Tales is revolutionary in several ways. Chaucer's portraits of people. Chaucer ruthlessly exposes human weaknesses, but also manages to empathize. His characters are not caricatures. They are multidimensional, like real people. The knight is both honorable and tragic. The miller is coarse but cunning. The wife of Bath is both sarcastic and deeply wise. The Pardoner is both deceitful and one of literature's most compelling narrators. This multidimensionality reveals Chaucer's psychological depth. Universal themes. The universality of the work remains relevant centuries later. This is because the themes it explores are still fundamental issues of the human spirit today. Love, both sublime and deceitful. Greed, humanity's oldest weakness. Struggle for power. In male-female relationships, between classes, between God and fate, pride and weaknesses, the source of human error. That is why Chaucer's stories do not remain confined to the medieval context. They resonate across the ages. Although the Canterbury Tales appears to us today as a complete work, it is actually an unfinished project. Chaucer's life, the political turmoil of the time, and his early death caused this monumental work to remain incomplete. The unfinished nature of the Canterbury Tales. According to Chaucer's plan, he would write 4 stories about each of the 30 pilgrims who set out on the journey. Thus, he had envisioned a massive collection of 120 tales. However, only 24 tales have survived to the present day. This number is not even 1/5 of the planned work. Why? Because Chaucer died in 1400. Likely at the age of 57, he passed away before completing his work. The version we have is a scattered, sometimes chronologically confused compilation. Subsequent copyists and editors have arranged the stories in different orders. First editions of the work after Chaucer's death, the Canterbury Tales began to circulate in manuscript form. In 1476, William Caxton, England's first printer, published Chaucer's work. This was one of the first major printed works, not only of Chaucer, but of all English literature. Caxton's printing immortalized Chaucer. Now, Chaucer's texts were no longer confined to the manuscripts of the elite, but could reach a wide readership. Post-Chaucer interpretations. Over the centuries, Chaucer has been interpreted in different ways. 15th and 16th centuries, he was seen as the national poet, the father of the English language. 18th century, his humor inspired the satirical sensibilities of Augustan writers. 19th century, Romantic poets were captivated by Chaucer's descriptions of nature. 20th century, feminist critics saw the wife of Bath character as a precursor to modern feminist discourse. 21st century, postmodern interpretations view Chaucer's text as a polyphonic, fragmented, unfinished, open book. Thus, Chaucer is reborn through the eyes of each era. In fact, Chaucer's inability to complete his work has increased its appeal. If all the stories had been completed, perhaps we would view the work as more rigid today. But its incompleteness has allowed it to remain an open text with infinite possibilities. That is why the Canterbury Tales is both a classic and an unfinished journey. Every reader adds their own story to the Canterbury journey. The legacy of the Canterbury Tales in the literary world. The Canterbury Tales is not merely a work that reflects the social, religious, and cultural life of medieval England. It is also one of the cornerstones of Western literature. By choosing the everyday language of ordinary people, Middle English, Chaucer ensured that not only nobles, but also peasants, merchants, priests, and women had a place on the literary stage. The universal message of the work: each traveler comes from a different class, a different faith, a different perspective, but they all come together on the same journey, on the same path. Chaucer thus prompts us to ask the following question: if we can share a journey despite our differences, what is the essence of our humanity? Therefore, the Canterbury Tales, is not merely a medieval text. It is a timeless monument to the diversity of the human spirit. Dear book lovers, we have come to the end of our long journey through Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. This work shows us not only 14th century England, but also a mirror of our own society, because humanity, despite the passage of centuries, continues to revolve around the same passions, the same weaknesses, and the same hopes. If you too wish to deeply feel the magic of these stories, be sure to take a look at Chaucer's text. Modern English translations are easily available. And believe me, after reading The Canterbury Tales, you will find yourself in the shoes of both a traveler and a listener. The legacy of The Canterbury Tales in the literary world. The Canterbury Tales is not merely a work that reflects the social, religious, and cultural life of medieval England. It is also one of the cornerstones of Western literature by choosing the everyday language of ordinary people, Middle English. Chaucer ensured that not only nobles, but also peasants, merchants, priests, and women had a place on the literary stage. The universal message of the work, each traveler comes from a different class, a different faith, a different perspective, but they all come together on the same journey, on the same path. Chaucer thus prompts us to ask the following question: if we can share a journey despite our differences, what is the essence of our humanity? Therefore, The Canterbury Tales is not merely a medieval text. It is a timeless monument to the diversity of the human spirit. Dear book lovers, we have come to the end of our long journey through Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. This work shows us not only 14th century England, but also a mirror of our own society, because humanity, centuries later, still revolves around the same passions, the same weaknesses, and the same hopes. If you too wish to deeply feel the magic of these stories, be sure to take a look at Chaucer's text. Modern English translations are easily available. And believe me, after reading The Canterbury Tales, you will find yourself in the shoes of both a traveler and a listener. Bookworm friends, our literary journey for today comes to an end here. If you enjoyed meeting Chaucer's pilgrims, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you on the next great literary journey.